Queen Elsora of the Virulon Empire was known across the galaxy for her pride. She ruled with power, elegance, and fear. No one dared oppose her. Her word was law, her presence unforgettable. But more than anything, she hated humans. To her, humans were wild, loud, and uncultured. They had no royal blood, no ancient traditions, and yet they were spreading fast across the stars. The virulent nobles believed they were superior to all species, but humans made them nervous. Too unpredictable. Too stubborn, so Elsora made a plan. A grand, humiliating plan. In the capital city of Lorexia Prime, Queen invited many species to a formal peace gathering. Her real goal was to make an example of a human soldier who had earned respect across many systems commander Rain Carter. The Queen had heard stories about his bravery, how he saved colonies and stopped wars with words instead of weapons. People called him the Iron Dove. Elsora called him a lucky monkey. She planned to embarrass him in front of every ruler. Rain, unaware of her scheme, arrived at the palace with calm confidence. He wore a simple Earth Forces uniform. No medals. No cape. Just the silver eagle of peace on his chest as he walked. Into the grand hall, alien leaders whispered. Some looked surprised, others smiled in welcome. But the Virulon nobles stayed quiet, their golden eyes watching like hawks. Elsora stood on her throne, tall and cold. Her golden robes sparkled under. The light in her crown floated slightly above her head, a sign of her psychic power. She raised a hand, and silence filled the room. Commander Rain Carter, she said, voice sharp as crystal. You have been invited here not as a guest, but as a lesson. Rain blinked, but stayed calm. I came with peace in mind, Your Majesty. A lesson sounds ... interesting. A few nervous laughs. Elsora didn't smile. You claim to speak for peace, yet you are human. Your kind only understands force, she said. So let us play a little game. A servant brought a silver cube. It floated, spinning, then opened. Inside was a glowing collar. This is a bond collar, Elsora said, a symbol of submission. If you are truly peaceful, you will wear it for one day. Show the galaxy you are not afraid to kneel. The crowd gasped. It was clear. She wanted. To humiliate him, make the human look weak. Rain looked at the collar. He understood the meaning. To where it meant shame, defeat. It would be remembered forever. But then he smiled. If it brings peace, then I will wear it, he said, and took. The collar gasps turned to silence. Even Elsora froze. The collar snapped around his neck, glowed, then dimmed. Rain bowed politely. Now, shall we continue the peace talks? He asked. Elsora's plan had not worked. Instead of looking weak, Rain looked noble, calm, strong in spirit. The crowd began whispering again, this time with respect, but the Queen was not done. Later that evening, during the royal feast, she tried again. She gave him a seat at the lowest table, far from the leaders. But alien envoys stood up and moved their chairs beside him. She sent dancers to distract him with mock rituals, hoping he would make a cultural mistake. Instead, he stood, placed his hand to his chest, and followed the dances with perfect respect. By the end of the night, many began calling him the most honorable man in the room. Sara watched, her plan slipping through her fingers like dust. Then her chief advisor, Lord Vectress, whispered in her ear, My queen, there is one final way to ruin him. Elsora leaned closer. Declare him bonded. Marriage. You place the collar on him in royal court. By old Virulon law, that is a royal engagement. Elsora's eyes widened. That law hadn't been used in centuries. It was written for peace. Between noble houses, if a collar was placed and accepted in court, it meant political union marriage. This could work, a final blow. The Queen, married to a human, he would never accept. He would run. He would become a joke. She stood again, voice cold. Commander Carter, she said, by the ancient laws of my people, you are now bound. The collar you wear is not only a symbol of peace, but of union. You are to be wed. To me. The hall went silent. Rain looked up, stunned for a moment. Then, slowly, he stood. "Is that your command, your majesty?" she smiled. "It is." He paused, then bowed. "Then I accept." Shock, laughter, shouting. Elsera's own smile vanished. "You accept?" Rain nodded. "If this marriage brings peace between our people, then I accept with honor." The entire room burst into voices. The queen stood frozen. Her trap had snapped shut but on her. She had wanted to humiliate him. Now she was the one caught. Her punishment? A marriage she never expected with the man she tried to shame, and worse, the people were starting to love him. The Virulon palace was quieter than usual. The royal guards walked slower, the maids whispered more, and even the walls seemed to listen. Something had changed. Queen Elsera, once feared and admired, now walked through her own halls with a storm. Inside her heart, she couldn't believe what had happened. Her plan to humiliate the human commander had failed in front of the entire galactic court. And now, because of an ancient law, she was engaged to a human, a marriage to him. She stood. Before a mirror in her private chamber, her golden crown floated above her dark blue hair. Her eyes sharp and bright looked tired for the first time in years. "How did this happen?" she whispered. Outside her room, the sound of laughter echoed. She knew who it was. Commander Rain Carter was making friends with her people again. Instead of hiding or running away, he had stayed. He had walked the halls with confidence, smiled at the staff, and even joined the soldiers for morning training. He was acting like nothing had gone wrong. But to Elsera, everything had. Lord Vectress entered without knocking. His face was pale. "My queen," he said quickly. "The people are talking." "Let them," she said coldly. "They're saying they admire him." Elsera turned sharply. "But even some nobles. They call him a ruler without pride. They like his simple words, his kindness. He helped the cook carry supplies this morning. He sparred with the guards. He fixed a broken robot in the garden. He is a soldier," she said, "not a prince." "But that's what they like," Vectress whispered. "They are inspired." Elsera clenched her fists. She had spent her life building strength through fear and control. And now a human. With no royal blood, no history, was changing everything by simply being ... humble. She had to act later that day. She called Rain to the Hall of Flama grand room used only for royal judgments. He entered wearing his simple uniform, the bond collar, still glowing faintly. He looked calm. "You sent for me, your majesty." "Yes," she said from her throne. "We need to speak about this marriage." He gave a polite smile. "I'm listening." "You accepted the bond too quickly," she said. "Step away. Leave this palace. Return to your people." Rain looked at her for a moment. "Do you want me to go?" Sara didn't answer. "I accepted this bond because I thought it meant something," he continued. "Peace, trust, and unity. If it was a trick, then say so." Her lips tightened. "You are a fool." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm a fool who keeps his word." Silence stretched across the hall. Elsera didn't like this. She wanted him to shout, to lose control, to prove he was nothing more than a common human. But he didn't. He stood straight, quiet, and calm, strong, without anger. "I will remain here," Rain said, "till you order me to leave." And with that, he bowed and left the hall. Days passed. Elsera tried to ignore him, but he was everywhere. When a storm damaged the lower gardens, Rain led the repairs. When a young servant was punished for breaking a vase, Rain spoke gently to the child and taught him how to build a new one from broken pieces. When the Virulon scholars dismissed Earth's technology as primitive, Rain gave them a demonstration of solar mining drones that impressed even the highest minds. Bit by bit, the palace began to change. The servants smiled more. The soldiers trained harder. Even the nobles spoke less of pride and more of respect, Queen. Elsera watched it all with quiet frustration and confusion. One night, she stood on the balcony of the sky tower watching the stars. Her thoughts were loud. Then footsteps. She turned. It was him. Rain walked to her side, keeping a respectful distance. "Beautiful night," he said. She didn't answer. He looked out at the stars. On Earth, we say the stars are ancient watchers. They guide those who are lost. She finally spoke. Do you think I am lost? He looked at her seriously. No. I think you've always known where you're going. You just didn't expect someone else to take the same road with you. She stared at him, surprised by his words. You speak like a poet, she said softly. Soldiers see many things. Some things can't be explained with logic. A long silence followed. Then she said, You confuse me, Commander. How so? I've ruled for decades. I've seen war and betrayal. I know games and lies, but you do nothing and still win. He smiled faintly. Sometimes doing nothing is the hardest thing. She didn't smile back. But she didn't walk away either. Instead, she looked up again at the stars. That night, Elsora couldn't sleep. She thought of everything Rain had done. He hadn't challenged her. He hadn't tried to control anything. He simply helped. He listened. He cared. And slowly her anger faded, replaced by something strange, something unfamiliar. Respect, curiosity. Perhaps both. The next morning, the Queen shocked the court. She arrived at the grand dining hall without guards, without her crown, just a plain silver dress. Rain was already there, speaking with 2 Virellan engineers. She walked straight to him. Commander, she said clearly, join me for breakfast. The room went silent. He stood, surprised, then smiled. I'd be honored. They sat at the royal table together. The nobles whispered. The servants stared, and for the first time, Queen Elsera shared. A meal with a human. Not as a trap, not as punishment, but as a choice. The palace buzzed with whispers. No one had expected Queen Elsera sharing breakfast with Commander Rain Carter at the royal table. It was a quiet moment, yet it shook the hearts of many. Some nobles were confused, others were angry. But many, especially the younger ones, watched with curiosity. How could peace between 2 very different species truly begin with a shared meal? Elsara barely touched her food. Her fingers played with the silver fork, eyes fixed on the man beside her. Rain, however, ate simply calmly. He noticed her watching. You don't trust me yet, he said softly. I trust no one easily, Elsera replied. That's wise, Rain said, but exhausting. She blinked, not expecting that answer. They ate in silence for a moment. Elsara spoke again. Why did you really accept the collar? The marriage? Rain looked thoughtful. I've seen too many wars begin over pride. I saw a chance to end one, maybe more, so I took it. You gave up your dignity. Rain gave a small smile. Maybe, or maybe I gave it new meaning. His words stayed with her all day. Later, Elsera called a meeting in the Hall of Unity. It was a long, glass-walled room where leaders from different worlds could meet on equal ground. She stood at the head of the table, and to everyone's surprise, Rain stood beside her. The topic was important. Cultural integration. She turned to Rain. I want you to help me. With what? With understanding your people. He raised an eyebrow. Humans. Their customs. Their strengths. Even their weaknesses. He nodded. Only if you let me understand yours too. Fair trade. For the next week, Rain joined Elsera in every council, every meeting, and even some training sessions. Together, they studied how Virellans and humans could work better side by side. He introduced ideas like emotional leadership, which Virellans had never used. She showed him the honor rituals of Virella, where silence sometimes meant more than words. One day, she took him to the Vault of Memories. A quiet place where each queen left behind part of her spirit through crystal recordings. Elsera placed her hand on a crystal, and a soft voice filled the room. It was her mother's. To rule is to be alone, the voice said. Rain listened quietly. When it ended, he looked at Elsera. Do you believe that? She hesitated. I used to, and now I don't know anymore. In return, Rain brought her to the Earth Forces embassy, hidden deep in the lower levels of the city. There, She met his old squad humans, who greeted her not with bows, but warm nods and jokes. Queen Elsora once said with a grin, "You're taller than I imagined." Don't. She didn't know whether to be insulted or amused. Rain chuckled. "You'll get used to them." They shared stories of earthits, storms, oceans, and cities that never slept. Elsira listened, and for the first time, she laughed. Back at the palace, some nobles weren't pleased. Lord Vectress frowned as he watched. "The queen smiling with humans. She grows weak," he whispered to another elder noble. "She listens too much, feels too much." "Ah!" "The people adore him," the other replied nervously. "If we act now, we may look like traitors." Vectress leaned closer. "Then we must make him look like one first." Meanwhile, Rain walked alone. In the royal library, books floated around him, guided by light and motion. Il Sirah joined him, holding an old volume. "You never told me about your family," she said. Rain smiled sadly. "I grew up in a colony on Mars. My parents were engineers. They died during a pirate attack when I was 12. "I'm sorry," Elsora said softly. "I joined the Earth forces at 17, at first, for revenge, later for peace." Watched him closely. "Is that why you're so calm all the time?" "Anger burns too fast. It leaves ashes," he said. "Peace lasts longer." Elsora looked away, thinking. Rain placed the book back on the shelf. "You've changed too," he said. "How?" "You used to speak like a queen. Now you speak like a leader." That night, Elsera stood by her window, watching the city lights. She thought about his words. She thought about his eyes, clear, honest, without fear. She didn't know if she was changing, or simply becoming who she was meant to be. 2 nights later, a formal unity ball was held in the royal ballroom. Nobles from across the stars attended. Elsora entered in a white royal gown, her crown glowing softly. She looked powerful, radiant, Rayn. Entered beside her in a black earth uniform, trimmed with silver. They stood together in the center, and then, to everyone's shock, Elsora extended her hand. "Will you dance, Commander?" she asked. Rain took her hand without hesitation. "Honor, my queen." The music began, slow, regal. They danced with grace, not like lovers, but like warriors who had fought battles together and understood each other. The ballroom watched in silence. When the music ended, the applause was not loud but deep and sincere. It was not just for a dance, it was for what it meant to leaders 2 worlds, one step closer to peace. But in the shadows, Lord Vectress watched with anger. His eyes narrowed. "This union cannot continue," he whispered, and in the next chapter of their journey he would strike. The royal cruiser floated through the stars like a silver arrow, smooth and silent. Inside it, Queen Elsera and Commander Rain Carter sat side by side, looking at a map of neutral space. They were on a diplomatic mission to a nearby system, the Sarian Accord, where peace talks were being held between several alien factions. It was Elsara's idea.
Oh.
"Let the galaxy see our unity," she had said. Rain agreed. For weeks now, they had worked together not as enemies, not even as strangers, but as partners. Every day, Elsara found it harder to remember why she had once hated humans. Rain didn't try to impress. He didn't try to rule. He simply stood beside her when she needed him, spoke when others stayed quiet, and listened when she felt unheard. Even now, as the ship glided through space, he sat beside her without needing to fill the silence. Just his calm presence was enough. But peace never lasts long as they reached the edge of the Sarian system. Something unexpected happened. The ship shook just, a little but enough to make the guards tense. Rain stood. "Report, young officer." Answered, "We've hit a signal jammer, sir. Communications are blocked." Elsara narrowed her eyes. "That technology is outlawed. Someone doesn't want us to arrive." Rain nodded. "Then we arrive early." The ship pushed forward through the disturbance. Soon, the diplomatic station appeared. Large, round, and covered in light, it floated like a city in the sky. They landed without a greeting, strange, normally. Sarian hosts sent welcome envoys. The Queen and Rain stepped out with a small guard, walking into the station halls. They were greeted by silence, and then a sudden attack. Dozens of masked figures dropped from the ceiling, weapons ready. "Protect the Queen," someone shouted. The guards fought back, energy blades flashing. Rain pulled Elsera behind a pillar, drawing his own small plasma blade from his boot. "Stay behind me," he said. Elsera pulled out her own royal staff, its energy core glowing. "You forget who you're talking to," Rain grinned. "Right, Queen of Varela." Together they moved with precision. Elsera's strikes were graceful and deadly. Rain's movements were quick and sharp, trained from real war. Back to back, they fought like they had done this 100 times. The masked attackers retreated, but one was caught. Rain pulled the mask off Lord Vectress. Elsera froze. "Shh." You Vectress looked calm, even smug. "I did what I must, my queen." "You were losing your way, falling for a human, letting him share your throne." "You betrayed your empire," Rain said coldly. "No," Vectress spat. "I tried to save it. It was taken away in chains, but the damage was done. The peace talks were ruined." And now, Elsera had to face a truth that cut deep. Her most trusted advisor had turned against her. Later that night, back on the cruiser, Elsera sat alone in her chamber. The stars outside the window no longer looked peaceful, they looked cold. Rain knocked softly before entering. "Are you all right?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. "Then he was with me since I was a child. He taught me how to rule. He helped build this empire." Rain sat beside her. "Trust is a hard thing to lose," he said quietly. "I trusted him more than anyone," she said. "And he tried to kill me." Rain placed a hand gently on hers. "You didn't lose everything," he said. "You still have people who believe in you, who fight for you." She looked at him, eyes sharp. "And you?" Rain met her gaze. "Still here." She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Just once." The next day, Elsera stood before her people. The palace had returned to its strong, glowing halls, but the air was different. The news of the betrayal had spread. She raised her voice. "There was a time when I ruled through fear, through pride. I believed I could control everything, standing silently near the throne. But I was wrong." The nobles murmured, "I have seen courage not in crowns, but in actions. I have seen honor not in blood, but in choice. And I have learned that peace is not weakness. It is strength of a different kind." She raised her hand. "I will not step back from this union. I will not be ashamed of it. I will not let fear decide our future." The crowd fell silent, then dash applause. Real, loud, honest, for the first time. Elsera did not feel like a queen standing above others. She felt like a leader standing among them, that evening. As the stars returned to their usual quiet, Elsera and Rain stood in the palace garden. The wind was soft, the lights gentle. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" Rain asked. "For standing with me when everything was falling apart." He smiled. "That's what partners do." She looked at him. "Is that all we are now?" Rain didn't speak. He just took her hand. And this time, she didn't pull away. The palace had returned to its rhythm after Lord Vectress' betrayal, but not all was calm. Something dark lingered in the air. Queen Elsera could feel it like a cold wind behind her back. Peace had grown, but so had the enemies who feared it. In the royal war room, a quiet alert flashed on the screen. It was a priority signal from a deep space listening station at the edge of Viralan territory. "An old weapon?" Elsera repeated, reading the report. Commander Rain Carter stood beside her, eyes narrowed. "It says it's an orbital relic cleft over from your great-grandfather's reign." Elsera nodded slowly. "He ruled during the Age of Conquest. He built war machines, then locked them away when the wars ended." "But someone's unlocked one now," Rain said, pointing at the signal. "This isn't an accident. Someone wants war again." The signal came from Zereth 9, a dark and frozen moon once used as a military testing ground. The coordinates matched a sealed vault known as Project Flamevale. Rain crossed his arms. "We should go. You know the politics. I know military code. Elsara agreed. We'll go together. This weapon must not fall into the wrong hands. Within hours, a small stealth cruiser was launched. Only trusted officers were told. No nobles, no press. Just Elsara, Rain, and a select few. As the stars passed outside the ship's window, Elsara stared silently. Her thoughts were heavy. Rain sat near her. You're thinking of him again? He said. She looked at him. My great-grandfather? Yes. He was powerful, but cruel. I promised myself I would never rule the way he did. You haven't, Rain said. But someone clearly wants his legacy back. She nodded. I fear they want more than that. They want to destroy everything we've built. Zereth 9 appeared on the screen, a cold, dead place with sharp mountains and heavy clouds. Lightning struck often across the icy surface. It looked like a world that never forgave. The ship landed in a hidden valley, protected by ancient shields. The group wore protective suits and moved toward the mountain vault entrance. Rain's hand stayed near his weapon. This place feels wrong, he muttered. Elsara's voice was steady. Elsara's voice. They entered the vault. The inside was made of black stone and silver walls. The air was dry and cold. Strange machines hummed in sleep. Symbols of past empires covered the walls. At the center of the vault was a giant round chamber. In the middle stood a massive metallic sphere, floating glowing faintly red. Rain stared at it. Is that the weapon? Elsara nodded. Flame Veil, psychic energy war core. It doesn't fire missiles, it fires fear, pure mental energy. It causes chaos in every living mind it touches. What? Rain frowned. That's not a weapon. That's madness in a box. Suddenly a noise behind them. The guards turned. Footsteps echoed through the halls. A voice came through the shadows. Too late, Your Majesty. Lord Vectress stepped out with a group of masked followers. I see you found my gift to the future. Elsara stepped forward. You were banished, he smiled, and yet I remain. You softened. You allowed weakness to take root in our walls. So I will return strength to our empire. Rain aimed his weapon. You activate that device, and you'll destroy more than just your enemies. Vectress raised his hand. The guards clashed instantly. Energy blades lit the chamber. Sparks flew. Elsara fought with sharp, elegant movements. Rain moved like lightning, protecting her side. But Vectress reached the control platform. He placed his hand on the crystal interface. The sphere began to pulse. Red light spread along the walls. The weapon was waking up. No, Sara shouted. Rain ran, dodging fire, and jumped onto the platform. He tackled Vectress. The two struggled, but Rain was faster. He hit the override panel. A loud chime rang through the chamber. The sphere shook violently. A blast of psychic energy burst out, brief but powerful. Everyone froze. Time seemed to pause, then dash silence. Ere Wyan stood slowly. Vectress lay unconscious. The weapon dimmed. What? Rain had stopped the full activation. Elsara rushed up. Are you all right? He nodded. Close call. Too close. They looked at the weapon, now asleep again. This place must be destroyed, Elsara said firmly. No one should have access to this, Rain agreed. We end it. Together. Back at the palace, a special announcement was broadcast across the empire. Queen Elsara stood tall before the cameras, with Rain beside her. Project Flameveil has been dismantled, she said. And those who tried to use it have been punished. But more importantly, she continued, we've learned that the greatest danger comes not from outside, but from forgetting the past. She placed her hand gently on Rain's. This man has shown me that unity is not weakness. It is our true strength. She paused, then looked into the camera. And today, I no longer stand alone. We lead together. We move forward together. The screen went dark. Across the empire, people cheered. Even in the outer colonies, human and virulent children watched with hope. That evening, on the palace balcony, Elsara and Rain looked out over the city. Lights sparkled like stars. You saved us again, Elsara said. Rain shook his head. We saved each other. She looked at him for a long time. This marriage began as a mistake. Rain smiled. Maybe. But now, she whispered, I'm starting to think it's the best decision I ever made. Rain reached for her hand, and this time she didn't hesitate. The grand halls of the Virulon Palace had never been so bright. Banners from dozens of planets waved in the wind. The palace gardens bloomed with golden flowers that opened only once every century, saved for historic moments. Floating lights danced in the sky, and soft music played from every corner of the city. It was the day of a royal ceremony like no other. Today, Queen Elsera would be crowned again, not alone, but beside the man who once wore a symbol of shame, Commander Rain Carter, now recognized not just as a warrior, but as her partner in peace. Elsera stood before her mirror in the royal chamber, dressed in a gown that shimmered like starlight. Her golden crown floated gently above her head, powered by the ancient Virulon energy. Her ladies-in-waiting bowed and stepped back as she took a deep breath. You look powerful, my queen, said one. Elsera didn't answer right away. She was thinking not about the crown or the dress, but about the long road that led her here. How she had tried to humiliate a human. How that plan had changed everything. How her heart, once locked away behind duty and pride, had opened bit by bit because of one man's quiet strength. In another chamber, Rain stood with his Earth Forces friends. He wore a ceremonial robe, designed with both Earth and Virulon symbols. A small silver cresta dove and flame sat on his shoulder, showing the bond between two worlds. You nervous? His old friend Mason asked with a grin. Rain laughed. Lightly, I've been through space battles, sabotage, and a psychic war machine. And this is what makes me nervous. Mason patted his shoulder. Well, this time you're not just saving the galaxy, you're marrying the queen. Ceremony took place in the Sky Dome, an open-air platform floating high above the palace. The stars could be seen even during the day. Leaders from every major world watched from special skyships, floating gently in the air. Elsera walked down the golden path, lone head held high, robes flowing behind her. When she reached the center, she turned and saw Rain walking toward her. He didn't wear a crown. He didn't need one. The crowd watched in silence. The high voice of Varela. An old woman with glowing white eyes stood between them. Elsera of the crown flame. She said, Do you take this man, born of earth, forged by battle, and shaped by peace, as your equal in rule and your partner in heart? Elsera said, voice strong, Reign of earth, do you take this queen, born of stars, shaped by law, and changed by love, as your partner in life and your companion in leadership? I do, Rain replied, eyes never leaving hers. The high voice raised her hands. A soft golden light surrounded them both. Then by the light of two worlds, you are bound. The crowd stood. Cheers echoed through the sky. Peace had a face now. Two faces, but far below, in the darker parts of the city. Someone watched with bitter eyes. A young noble, jealous and angry. Sent a signal through a small hidden device. An ancient war droned, doctivated for years, woke up deep beneath the city. Its code was simple. Target the queen, end the union. Back in the Sky Dome, Rain and Elsera were greeting their guests when the first alert came through. Emergency. A guard whispered into Elsera's ear. A rogue drone is rising from under the palace. Rain's eyes sharpened. Another attempt. No time for speeches, Elsera said. We end this together. The crowd was moved into safety zones quickly. Rain and Elsera rode a hoverlift to the city's underlevel, where the drone was moving fast. Climbing toward the palace foundation. It was large, nearly 10 feet tall, shaped like a spinning blade with legs and eyes. Its weapons glowed red, ready to fire. The drone locked onto Elsera. Queen detected, eliminating. It fired. Rain jumped, pulling Elsera behind a wall. The blast scorched the air where she stood. Get back, he shouted. No, she said. We finished this together. Elsera activated her royal staff, its crystal tip glowing. Rain drew his plasma blade. The drone attacked again. Rain moved forward, dodging a laser, and struck at its leg. Sparks flew. Elsora jumped to a higher platform and aimed her staff. A bright energy beam shot out, hitting the drone's core. Stumbled, but didn't stop. Then an idea, Elsora Rain shouted. Hit the center when I distracted. He ran across the platform, drawing the drone's attention, chased him, firing rapidly. Just as it turned its back to her, Elsora closed her eyes and focused. Her crown glowed brighter than ever before. She released a powerful blast of pure energy. Direct hit. The drone shook, screamed, and exploded in a flash of light. Smoke filled the air, then dashed silence. Ryan stood, coughing slightly, but alive. Elsora walked to him, still in one piece. She asked. Mostly, he said, smiling. Told you we're better together. The next day, news of the attack spread fast, but so did the story of how the Queen and her new husband stopped it with their own hands, for the first time in centuries. Both humans and Varellans saw a ruling couple not as a symbol, but as a team. It's force stronger than tradition, stronger than war, stronger than fear. That night, back on the balcony where it all began, Elsora stood beside Rain, her hand in his. Do you regret it? She asked. He looked at her. Regret what? This marriage. Risk. He shook his head. I regret not accepting it sooner. She smiled. I used to think love was a weakness, she whispered. And now, he asked. She turned to him fully. Now I think it's the strongest force in the universe.